everyone to tonight's update. We want to share a little bit of information about where we're at with Project Beacon, Texas. Just want to go ahead and do a couple of introductions. The current board members of Project Beacon are myself. My name is Kelly Bowman. I'm serving as the president of Project Beacon. I had a 24-year career with an architecture and design firm as the director of consulting based here in Houston, Texas, and have recently gone out on my own as a solopreneur. And that has given me some time to devote to this project, which I'm very passionate about. Kevin's going to share a little bit more of that with you later. Kevin Garrity is serving as our vice president. He is my cohort and co-founder, and he and I have been cooking up and scheming about Project Beacon for a number of years. And again, he's going to go through some of that background with you guys so you know what's what. We've also looped in Dave Abrams, who's here on the call, otherwise known as iPad number 9, if you're looking at the project, the participant list. Dave is a longtime friend and colleague, worked for ExxonMobil, is now a retiree, a project executive, also had project executive experience with United Way as Dave, I'm probably screwing this all up, but certainly has the background as a project executive, financial controls, to serve as our treasurer for Project Beacon. Rob Johnson is another friend and longtime friend and colleague of both Dave and Kevin's. He is a retiree from ExxonMobil as well, served in the general counsel department there at ExxonMobil, and is serving as our secretary and our general counsel for Project Beacon. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to go through some of the background and how we got here. So Kevin, take it away.
Okay, now Kelly, I'm not seeing the slides.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah, but
what are you seeing?
I'm seeing you.
Well, that's good.
I'm seeing you, and I
couldn't see you guys,
screen.
but let's go to this.
Thank Kelly, you. Did you share on Zoom?
I did not.
Yeah, so you have to share.
I'm sharing. Y'all can tell I haven't done this in a while.
Okay. All right, so I've got the next 3 or 4 slides here. A little background, as Kelly said. First, I think we've come a long way. I think you'll see a timeline here of activity, but you'll note, as maybe a former marketing guy, we've got colors and branding and a logo and et cetera, which Kelly helped us with some of her architectural and design colleagues. So you'll note we've got a particular font or whatever, and that's going to be our brand, our logo, et cetera, going forward. So, how we got here, I think if you have a child on the spectrum or, an IDD kid or however you want to phrase it, I think you've lived this, which is basically, you go to the ARD meetings at school. And this is the way it is in Texas. I know Keith and Wendy, New Jersey may be a little bit more sophisticated, but here in Texas, my experience, I think our experience, Kelly and I as parents, you go to the ARD meetings and you start working through, hey, this is what we're going to work on in school, et cetera. As you get through that list, and my son Tommy's 19, you start getting through the high school years, like, okay, what's next? And you start planning, and if you're thinking through, special needs, trusts, et cetera, you start thinking about, well, what's going to happen? Where's my son or daughter going to live when I'm not here? So you start pinging the school district resources in the ARD meetings. They give you a list of locations. At least that's what it was for me. So I started looking at the list of locations and going for visits and et cetera. And in a state the size of Texas, at least my recollection when I first started looking, was there about 12 locations on this list. And Texas is a huge state, obviously. And you start looking at these locations, and I visited some in the Austin area, Dallas area, around Houston, around San Antonio. And, they're all great operations, not trying to disparage a thing. But with my son, for example, he's nonverbal, he's severely autistic. He would have been not admitted. He would not have made the cut at six or seven of those 12 locations. You need to be verbal. You need to be some level of independence. So that wasn't going to work. So then you start looking, all right, what else am I going to do here? So you start looking at the locations that would take them and spend a little more time there. And for me, it became a little bit obvious that each one of these places has their set routine. It works for them. You know, some of them have vocational opportunities on the facility. Some, you know, they arrange to get to the local, say Walgreens or some of these national chains that help promote employment opportunities for IDD individuals. So there's a definite pattern, program, routine, framework, if you want to call it that, but you have to live with that, you know, and most, you know, of my experience with special needs kids is each one is specifically individual. I mean, everybody is individual, but maybe more, maybe the magnifying glass is even more so in these cases. So you're trying to fit the square peg in a round hole. And I thought to myself, I don't know that Tommy's going to be super happy at these places. So I backed up a little bit and I said, well, what if that doesn't work? And I had engaged a special needs consultant who was great. If you're in the Texas area, this guy, Steve Radigan, you may know him, Archer Consulting. I found him to be a great breath of fresh air, a lot of experience. So I was talking to Steve and he's like, hey, you know, there's this trend now where parents are doing it themselves. They're getting a house, 3 or 4 bedrooms, their son or daughter with a couple other young adults and trying to work it that way. So all through this time, I'm comparing notes with Kelly. Hey, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? And this is where I give Kelly a ton of credit because I was thinking to myself, I got to solve the Tommy problem. And at the end of the day, Kelly was like, why don't we pay it forward here a little bit? Why don't we try to solve, you know, for more than just our 2 kids? So that got us rolling on a bigger idea that is now what we're calling Project Beacon. So if you want to go to the next slide, Kelly. You know, and for those that are, you know, kind of exposed to this situation, I mean, I don't think there's any convincing needed that we have an issue. You know, you have a growing population, a small set of acceptable solutions, and a hodgepodge kind of government, local regulations. It's a very tough spider web to navigate to get an answer. So this slide gives a sense of just in Texas here, you know, the size of the problem we're facing. So you've got 300,000 family caregivers and 7% are receiving support. You know, so we're not, that's not a large number that's plugged into any kind of statewide support agency. So everybody's kind of doing it themselves. And then if you're on any of these waiting lists through school, I think we had Tommy signed up when he was in 4th grade, and he's something like 8,000 on the list right now. And at the rate they're going, he won't be eligible for any of these waiver support deals till he's like 40. I mean, and I don't even know if I'm going to be here. Hopefully, yes, but I mean, the wait list is crazy. 166,000 and more people on the waiting list. And the rate of absorption off of that waiting list is very slow. And and I'm no expert here, but my understanding is, you know, it's driven by state funding, and the state toggles the funding off and on, off and on. A couple of years, nothing happened, nobody moved. All of a sudden, hey, let's fund it a little bit, and you start knocking some guys off the list. But the list is huge. You can see about a third of that, they've been waiting more than 10 years. Tommy's one of those kids. So, okay, the support system out there, clogged, slow. What about the current situation? Aging caregivers. You know, you got 70% of these kids living with the family, 20%, I bet that number's low, are with family caregivers 60 or older. And it's growing. You know, you look at how many, you know, whatever stat you look at, whether it's for autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, whatever it is, there's more and more kids, and there's less and less solutions. So you think about at the bottom here in the greater Houston area, 1,000 beds, and look up above, there's you know, 166,000 people on the waiting list, and you're what is that, 1% of the beds, and 105 vacant, 166,000 on the list. So however way you want to look at the math and the numbers, there's a lot more need than there is ability to service that need. So if you go to the next slide. So we said, hey, we got to solve this problem. We're going to see if we can do it ourselves. To me personally, I got to a certain level of frustration where I couldn't see the path forward for my son. And I'm like, look, I got to figure this thing out. I'm going to be 57 here. There's got to be an answer. So we said, hey, let's see if we can solve the answer ourselves. So we had to go at it in 2019. We started talking more. As Kelly said, we started with Project Beacon a little bit more. COVID came. Everybody kind of, had to take a pause. Nothing was going on. It was kind of just hunker down and survive. But I feel pretty good about the bullets under 2021. I mean, we're barely halfway through, and we've made some good strides. We found a project manager who specializes in what we're trying to do. The guy's based in Texas. He's got his fingers in 10 to 15 similar projects around the US, so a great source of learning. And we paid to have him come down and do a strategic workshop. Got a great roadmap, a lot of tips, and we'll continue to go back to that guy for ideas. We're setting up our nonprofit thanks to Dave. Dave's done a great job navigating, establishing the entity, getting the 501c3 established. What are the rules we got to live by? What are the bylaws? I think of shout out to Dave on this fiscal sponsorship deal. We thought, hey, we're gonna have to set up our 501c3 ourselves. COVID, you could do it in the state, but then you had to get the IRS to approve your tax-free status. And depending on who you talk to, that was a 6-month, 12-month kind of process. Dave found a company, PPF, set up by a couple retired professional athletes that wanted to give back, that will do that. They provide the umbrella 501c3 and handle a lot of the admin and accounting, et cetera, for a very nominal fee. And you go underneath their umbrella and get rolling right away. And then 12 months later or whatever, if you want to branch out and do it yourself, you can do it. But I think there's a lot of benefits. They bring some great lessons learned. I think they're up to 280 similar entities that they're providing that service for. So a great source of knowledge. So we're rolling. And Kelly this week, put Project Beacon on the Houston Autism Roundtable committee. So we're a member there and networking with other like-minded projects. I think 2021 has shown some pretty good progress, and we're very bullish on the future.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin. It was a good update where we've been. As Kevin said, we've done quite a bit of research, really reaching out, looking across the United States at other facilities and thinking about our own needs. And pretty quickly on, Kevin and I just kind of latched on to this inclusive, caring, and fulfilling as some value sets that we want to hold to develop our vision moving forward and to clearly define what our purpose and mission will be. And the whole time that we're doing it, we're thinking about, Tommy's, the Brian's that you see here. This was taken from an article in a Fast Company magazine. So this topic has been getting national airplay. It is something that is across the board in the United States, parents all around struggling. The numbers you saw on the Houston, we have a problem, were strictly about Texas. If you start to look at the numbers across the United States, it's much, much worse and pretty dire. So we want to think about, being caring and fulfilling and inclusive with everyone. And so we said we want to help solve for this critical shortage of quality residential options for adults with autism, neurodiversity, and intellectual and developmental disabilities within the greater Houston area. And I'll go into why these three groups here in just a little bit more when we start talking about target market. So our mission is to develop an intentional residential community for these same individuals that provides a safe, caring, and flexible environment. What we really want is for each resident to realize their full potential. As we spent 2020 personally in COVID, quarantined, isolated in the house with my adult son, who couldn't work. There was nothing available to him to get out there in the community. I realized just how isolating it was, and it was certainly an eye opener and something that pushed us hard in early 2021 to get going on this. We know it won't be an overnight solution. So talking about developing a vision, one of the things that we have done is we have tapped into communities who are doing some really good things. One of the things that we've learned is that there is no one size fits all answer, as Kevin mentioned when he talked about the square peg in a round hole. So there are intentional communities that are they're rural, they're kind of set in horticulture based environments, and they're all the way to communities that are urban environments, that are in mixed use, that are very connected with the universities and the local government. Particularly Arizona stands out. One of the places where we've gotten a great deal of information is from a group with the Autism Housing Network or Foundation, who's done a partnership with First Place in Arizona and Arizona State University. They published a report in December of 2020 called A Place in This World, and it's a fairly comprehensive report that goes into all of the different models that you could consider when developing a community for people with neurodiversities, autism, and intellectual and developmental disabilities. So what I'm going to show you here is just kind of the tip of the iceberg of what we're considering when we talk about developing a vision. There's a lot more work that needs to be done. We need to understand the extent of the need, what services people are looking for, what would really hit the mark in terms of the residential community and that would make it right, and how could we solve the most problem within our greater Houston area moving forward. So we're partnering with the Houston Housing Roundtable. Some notable folks on that roundtable from Avondale House, Heart Program, City of Houston is involved, the Center for the Pursuit, lots of different folks who are involved in that. But what I will tell you that I have learned is that this particular community is so open and sharing because there is such a need, and everyone has a heart for solving for it. So I think we're going to help each other get to this. So location and the market that we intend to serve. So the greater Houston area connected to surrounding local community. That's as narrow as we have gotten with this. And I realize when I say that, I'm talking about a very large area. 8 counties could be considered in this. But really the reason we don't want to narrow it down just at this 10 seconds is because we know that it's going to take just the right mixture of understanding of how a local community could support an intentional community like Project Beacon. What are the access routes, transit, vocational opportunities, those types of things. So we haven't narrowed it down, and for good reason at this 10 seconds. The types of residents that we want to serve. We want to serve adults with autism and neurodiverse adults. And you might be asking yourself, what's the difference between the two? And to be quite frank with you, all of these categories are, from Texas Health and Human Services perspective, all falls under the category of intellectual and developmental disabilities. But the reason that it's different is that the programming aspects of a community may be different in terms of what you might be providing and to the extent that you might be providing it. So people with autism who may be on an Asperger's end or something like that, they may need something that's more around sensory friendly design. Neurodiverse adults includes all of the neurodiverse issues or the broad range of neurodiverse issues that could come along. It includes autism, but it might include epilepsy or cerebral palsy or fetal alcohol syndrome, Down syndrome, any of those. And for those adults, you may want to look at not only just sensory friendly design, but you may also want to consider smart home features. You also probably want some community program to connect these adults. And then the intellectual and developmental disabilities service, those adults usually have some sort of cognitive functioning impairment or difference. And so they may need, along with smart home features and sensory friendly design and all of those things, they may also need a heightened sense of security and planned activities and those types of things. So we want to make sure that we're identifying the types of residents who may be interested in a community like Project Beacon. One of the other things that we think is really important is to incorporate an aspect of the vocational and connecting individuals to appropriate employment and opportunities. This goes back to my earlier comment around the location, making sure that we have that stream or something that is close by and accessible for residents on all ends of the spectrum. And then potentially maybe even doing something on site. We've been looking at CAS, which is a community that is in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Super progressive ideas of what they are doing there, but they are earning income using hydroponics from converted shipping containers. These happen to be really great opportunities for kids who or young adults who may need a little bit more of a controlled setting and can do some level of work for just a few hours a day. So the kinds of support needs that we would be looking at, we talked about being very flexible. So we want phase one of Project Beacon to be designed to serve really an individual who may have no support needs, but really wants to be in community for successful independent living. Or maybe somebody who just needs some drop-in support or low support or some moderate support throughout the day, all the way to being able to provide the right kind of housing for someone who might need one-on-one support. In future phases, we may consider those service needs from medical support, memory care, high behavioral support needs. All of these things, certainly there's a difficulty level that comes along with each one of those things, but we also want to consider that we want our young adults to be able to age in place and to be able to stay in one space if they so choose to do that. So talking about the model, and when I talk about intentional residential community, this idea, I didn't really understand it until we were able to meet with the consultant and have some conversations with other groups. But
Kelly, I'm gonna throw 2 cents in here because I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think this slide to me is very important. One of the things that as we launched into this effort, we're like, hey, well, we don't know that we understand all the stuff that's going on here with the rules and whatever. So to me, as we learn from our consultants and some of the guys that we've been talking to that have some expertise here, I think I'm a simplifying guy. So to try to simplify it, you have on the left-hand side of the page, kind of the operator of the facility. Here's the building. We're going to organize the pizza night. We're going to make sure there's security there, maybe cleaning, blah, blah, blah. So you've got the overall aspect to it. And then on the right, the residents have flexibility to figure out how they want to have the care provided. And I think as Kelly had shown the tiered approach, hey, maybe there's a little bit required, maybe there's a medium, maybe there's a lot, but the distinction and the separation between who runs the facility and who provides the care and having the options is important when it comes to this waiver stuff and the money. So having the right setup like that and kind of the independence between the left and the right is critical for the cost offsetting for each individual to be able to get full benefit of the programs out there and still have flexibility in how they want to, and how we would like to provide the care for our young adults or our kids. So sorry, Cal, but I think when we were talking about this slide before, to me, it crystallizes, a little bit of the, threading the needle that you got to do through all the rules to make sure you can provide the right setup. Do you sell the condos? Do you lease the apartments? There's a whole thing with that. But understanding the facility side and then understanding the care side is important. And I think, we're learning as we go, and we're getting people that are a lot smarter than us in this to help us. But to me, that's one of the ahas things for me is you got to have these 2 things on the slide to maximize the business case.
Yeah,
Sorry, Kelly.
thanks, Kevin. Yeah, and I think this is really, I should stop here and just give a little bit of a shout out. I think I saw Ronnie Joe Frazier join the call earlier. And I have to tell you, Ronnie Joe was very instrumental. She's with Bloom Consulting. Probably a lot of you know Bloom Consulting. She was very instrumental in helping us understand the long-term services and support providers and what they do and how they provide services, and understanding the consumer-directed model as well as a provider-directed model, and helping us to kind of just move through that. We will continue to develop what we're calling preferred partnerships with people like Bloom Consulting, so that we can make sure that the services that they're providing and the place that we are building, and the community that we are intentionally building, that those two things can come together in a really successful way. And so, Ronnie Joe, thank you very much for all of your help and your continued help with our group.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, and I think a shout out as well. Ronnie Joe has a house going. So one of the things that we really benefit from is the practical experience that she and Bloom have in terms of setting up a home here in Atascocita, around the corner from where I am. So, the service providing, and then the actual nuts and bolts of getting to the end zone with the house, I think has been invaluable.
So when we start looking at the residential unit types, these could be private or shared, they could be rental or sale. I mean, and these are just a few of the options. This isn't obviously a comprehensive list, but you might be thinking, okay, well, what is it going to be? And I think based on market survey and focus group results, which I'll talk a little bit more about both of those things moving forward, we'll start to develop that master plan and what it actually looks like. It's going to be important from, the development type, whether it's scattered site, mixed use, co-housing, planned community, whatever those things are, will come from the market survey, the focus group results, and certainly the financial stack. Can we make it financially viable? We have a desire to make sure that this is affordable for our young adults, for the services that they have, and that it's accessible, and it's a sustainable model as well. So no answers here, just some ideas that you should know that we are considering all of these things. Some of the physical amenities that should be built into a Project Beacon phase 1, again, to be determined. It will depend on, the level of interest and what people say they want, what people say they need, and again, the financial stack that goes along with that. But it's a fairly comprehensive list of the things that we think we would want to consider as we start to master plan what Project Beacon actually looks like. So there's the physical amenities, and then there's the supportive amenities. And this is really kind of to me, this is the secret sauce of what will make Project Beacon really thrive and make this a place where our young adults can go to live and really be integrated in community. So community life, those planned activities, having that community navigator on site or a resident assistant that could just pop in and, show them how to, here's the button that you use on the washer or dryer or any of those types of things, all the way to perhaps having meal service available or health and fitness activities. And then, of course, working with our providers to give some kind of workplace or vocational supports, or providing vocational opportunities on site. So all of those kinds of supportive amenities are things that we're going to want to be looking at in the future as we develop that full-on business plan. We think it's going to take between 3 and 5 years. The optimistic side of me wants to say 3. I know it will take closer to 5, but we want to definitely make sure that we're thoughtfully developing all of the aspects of it, get a very sustainable business model lined out to make sure that we understand funding and how things would work to get things off the ground, how they might transition over time as well. One of the things that we're very interested in doing is adding programs and services early to start to begin to build community and provide, something of value to potential residents as we move forward before we even get the physical place on board. We think that might be a really nice touch and something that's definitely needed.
Yeah, like an example there could be, we could start the hydroponic growing, in advance. It could be a job, place for folks to go, day programs, et cetera. And it generates a income stream outside of fundraising per se that lets us get there quicker. So some of those ideas, I think, get us plant the Project Beacon flag a little quicker than waiting for the facility to be built.
Yeah, and I think Kevin, it's a good point. Kevin and I have been out talking about this with anybody who would listen to us, and we've actually, that idea of the freight farms or the hydroponics gardening. We've got several restaurant owners that said, I will sole source green leafy vegetables from your gardens if you can make that happen, because they see the win-win in giving back to the community. And there's a lot of those out there. So I think there are people who want to help and who want to do things. And so we're going to try and find those win-win opportunities where we can and try to make them happen. So for you guys on the call, or any of you who might be listening to this later on, here's some of our ask from you, because it's a big endeavor. And when I told Kevin we should swing for the fences, I was like, it's a big endeavor. We need a team, and we need your help. So we'd love for you to let other people know about what we're doing. We'd like to get people involved. So please spread the word. If you are not on our Facebook page or LinkedIn, YouTube channel, or anything, I'm going to give you my email address at the end of this, and I'm going to ask you to please email me so that we can connect. I'm going to ask you to join the team. There's a lot of work to do. We've got a variety of areas, and I'm going to go through those where maybe you're specifically equipped to help. Maybe someone who this may be just the cause they were looking for and would want to get involved in helping to better the lives of this community. Donate if you're able to donate. We can now accept tax deductible donations of any amount. So we definitely would welcome your donations. We will be getting that information out to you soon, so you'll know how you can make those donations. Just full disclosure, that was hot off the press today. Dave was working hard behind the scenes with our fiscal sponsor group to make sure that we had that, and just couldn't quite get the button up before our 7:30 meeting, but it's coming. If you have a family member who you think could potentially be a resident in our facility, we would really like to talk to you, because we would really like to understand what you and your family member might be looking for. And so we'll talk about that focus group that we've got planned for the fall. We'd like to hear from you. And then if you're someone you're a provider, you would consider this as a facility you would love to work and live in and give back to the community, we need caring and compassionate staff. I mean, it's not just about the building, it is about the people that make up the community that is there. And so we really want to make sure that we have quality, caring, compassionate staff.
Yeah, I think Kelly, I don't know, you probably touched on this, but when we went and looked at some of the more successful models out there, and the ones that we really saw as inclusive and innovative and plugged into the community, they had that model of like the RA/RD setup from college, where it's part of the compensation model you can ask for. And I think one of the things, and this is what we learned, another thing we learned from Ronnie Joe, the average cost and the average wage out there of the average caregiver is not great. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we want to do is provide excellent service. We're going to pay above, the average. And how do you construct a compensation package that's attractive? Lodging, maybe making some of these apartments a little larger for families, et cetera. Some of that stuff is embedded in the most successful and sustainable models that we saw out there. So to me, that was another aha thing. It'd be, to build that into the plan going forward.
Yeah, 100%. So some of the roles and committees that we have identified as needing to be formed moving forward, we've got listed here. So obviously an executive committee, that'll be part of our board. Right now, as I introduced our board, we are a 4-member board. We are looking to grow our board between 5 and 7. It is also very important to us as parents that we have an independent board. So Kevin and I are fully aware of the fact that we're trying to solve something that is deeply personal, but we want to make sure that we have a level of objectivity out there. And so we're looking to have an independent board that is not made up of primarily parents. We are looking for advisory council as well. So if you think about each one of these committees, we'll be looking for advisory council to help serve to advise the board on each one of these topics moving forward. And then, of course, the volunteer committees that will set up in each one of these categories. So finance, a finance committee that will set up proper financial records. Dave will be handling this particular committee, but also making sure that they're working, collaborating with the communications and marketing and establishing donation channels and other financial activity. Our governance moving forward to make sure that we are following all of the proper policies, procedures, bylaws that are being upheld, and will also be responsible for our board elections. Some of the more practical things that I know that, those top ones, absolutely, we have to have them, but some of the things that we really need to get Project Beacon going lie in the heart of the operations, which is around communication and marketing. So our newsletters for the independent school districts and all of the areas, we want to make sure that the word can get out to as many people as it can that might be interested in understanding what a Project Beacon might be able to offer. And then newsletters for parents. We have a web page. I think Kevin mentioned this earlier, that we did hire an independent contractor to set up our webpage, all of our social media accounts and things like that. But as you know, all of that takes work to make sure that you're maintaining it and that the content and development is up there moving forward. And then raising awareness for any of our fundraising efforts, which will be critical to us moving forward. One of the fun ones, I mentioned the development of our vision, but this project development and operations, if you have skills in the planning and development of physical structures or master planning, architectural, permitting, project management, any of those things, we would invite you to come join us on that committee. There's a lot of work to do to get that going, and probably needs to happen pretty quickly as soon as we get that market survey and more information from our focus groups. We also want to start building out the programs and vocational models. So understanding what the applications process would be for residency at Project Beacon, as well as standards of care and service model and the service provider requirements who would be allowed to operate at Project Beacon. Again, going back to Kevin's comments around, we want quality service providers, and we would like to set a standard for that where Project Beacon is concerned. And then, of course, all of the resource development, this could be including engaging with the government entities. One of the things that I found out yesterday sitting in on the project the housing roundtable is that there is a lot of work to do to make sure that we are educating those local government agencies who are responsible for allocating the funding sources. Right now, this community of autism, neurodiverse, IDD, they're kind of lumped in with just about everybody, but their needs are very, very different than, just the general low-income housing population. They have a special need. So educating those government entities and forming relationships with the people who run those government entities will be important, so that we can start to work on getting some of those set-asides or allocations of those funding sources. Maybe we don't get it right away, but maybe we work towards getting that later on in the future. And then, of course, if there's any kind of tax abatements or incentives or anything like that that might be out there, we definitely want to make sure that we can take advantage of those, with few strings attached if we can. We like it out every way. And then we
Definitely
want
without a lot of strings, please.
I'm going to continue to be optimistic. And then this group would be the group that's also responsible for those fundraising events and campaigns and writing and submitting grants. So obviously lots of opportunity to come join the team, to come bring your special skills, knowledge and abilities to Project Beacon and work with us. As I said, I want you to write down my email. It's info@projectbeacontx.com. Send me an email if you are interested in serving on a committee, an independent board, an advisory council. If you have something special, or even if there's someone you just want us to meet and talk to, whatever it is, please just send us an email. I know a number of you did sign up on our parent interest list and told us kind of what committee you would want to serve on. I still have all of that information. But if you're fired up and you're ready to get started, we'd love to hear from you. Just send me an email. Let's connect that way. In the fall of 2021, we want to do a focus group when the time is right. Ideally, we would do that in person again, if conditions warrant and it's safe and we can do that. We'd like to have a mixture of parents and self-advocates, so our young adults who would be interested in coming and talking about what they would be interested in moving forward in terms of supportive amenities, development types, where they would like to see it be held, and what's important to them. So we want to understand that, and we're going to target that for sometime this fall, and we'll keep you updated on when that will happen. But we think that's an important next step. The market survey that I keep talking about, the Housing Roundtable, is in discussions with a number of different entities here in Houston to look at potentially sponsoring that market survey. Project Beacon will certainly advocate for that and support that market survey, because it could help us tremendously in understanding how we might serve the community through Project Beacon. So more to come on the market survey part, but the focus group we're targeting for the fall of 2021. Kevin, are there any last things that you would want to say? And then we can open the floor if there are any questions.
No, I mean, the only thing I would emphasize, I guess, is there's a lot of work. I think we saw that on the ask, and we know we believe there's a huge need based on the Houston We Have a Problem slide. So I think, we've got some core folks on the call here. So just, take it and pass it forward, and talk to somebody or somebody that knows somebody, or another parent or whatever. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. This is the first step, trying to engage with a broader set of interested parents and folks that want to help. So as much as you can help spread the word, I think that's the biggest ask coming out of here, and connect with us so we stay connected.
Yes, please. So I quit sharing. I can see the chat, and I don't see any questions in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself if you're comfortable doing that. Would love to try to answer any questions if we can.
I don't have any questions. I'm just really excited that our son is 16, and we're, we've finally come to the realization that he's not going to be able to be completely independent. He is high functioning. And it's like, as Kevin said earlier, what will happen when we're not here?
Yeah.
And I think that he would thrive in the type of environment that you guys are describing. And it makes me really excited. So I was looking through the list. So Kelly, I'll send you an email about what our skill sets are and how we can help.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Jennifer, the drive, energy is the first skill set. The passion to do it.
Yeah.
We'll find we'll find a spot, just get on board.
Absolutely.
I wanted to, I'm Leslie. I have a 19-year-old son who is nonverbal, and he just graduated at Woodlands High School. I'm so proud. He walked across the stage in front of 7,000 people. It was quite it was quite a challenge. And the promise was as soon as he came off the stage, he could go home. And so there were no meltdowns or anything like that. I was really pleased. He would be the kind of resident that I think would really benefit. I'm really interested in, there are a couple things, and I'll email you, Kelly. We've talked before.
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of starting a new business, so I'm a little overwhelmed on my side. But we saw a program up in Pennsylvania. We lived in 6 different states dealing with autism. And in Pennsylvania, there's a man by the name of Mike Jarman who started a school called the Vista School. We were one of the early participants. Mike has retired, but that's a model that I would really encourage you all to at least look at. He's very generous with his time, and he had twins. And what made me think of this is, you said, do we do this just for ourselves, or do we do it, pay it forward? And that was Mike's vision. And so he took that forward. It's an extraordinary school. We were lucky enough to have Jack in there 1 year. And so I'll send you the details, but he's somebody you should look at. He has a wealth of knowledge. He's a corporate tax attorney. And so he knows all sorts of things, and he might be very helpful.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Leslie. I'm glad you're on tonight.
Yeah. And I will be joining something, but I'll be a follower for a little while.
Just help spread the word.
Mhm.
Just let your friends know.
How many are any of you affiliated or have children at the Woodlands High School?
No,
Unless I
Mike,
graduated
think Kelly
from
and I,
Woodlands.
yeah, we both had kids in the Conroe ISD. I moved over here to Kingwood when the kids were in junior high in McCullough, and didn't get to Woodlands High School.
We're in Montgomery ISD.
I have to just tell you that like I said, my son has been in everything from very poor schools to Department of Defense schools to CISD and Fairfax County, Virginia schools. And what the Woodlands High School team has done for us is miraculous. I never expected it. I am still shocked to this day. Yesterday, I was sent a video of Jack putting together circuits on a circuit board. That would never have happened. So there are some great resources, and his teacher, Ricky Boyles, who at one time ran group homes. She's a resource, and I'll share with her.
Thank you.
I would say the Conroe ISD has done a really good job of spreading the word about Beacon. I think that's how they bumped it over, Jennifer, over to the Montgomery ISD. I think they kind of said, hey, we're going to spread this beyond just our borders. And I always found, the special needs coordinators there in the Conroe ISD to be pretty proactive, willing to share. So yeah, I think it's a great spot there.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being on tonight, listening to the beginning of our vision and the first step for Project Beacon getting moving. Looking forward to talking to each one of you again and working with you hopefully very soon.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Happy
Appreciate it.
But
Thank
All
you
right.
so much. We
All right.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
all.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.